Hello and welcome to the Milltown Way podcast, the independent Shamrock Rovers podcast covering all things hoops. I'm Ryan Brennan, and on this week's episode, we'll be looking back on a hugely frustrating night in Tallaght Stadium as Shamrock Rovers fell to a late 2-1 defeat against Sligo Rovers. We will also discuss the debate surrounding the international call-ups for Ed McGinty and Adam Brennan, as they will look to represent Ireland in friendlies against Qatar and Canada. And finally, we will look ahead to Monday night's Dublin derby away to Bohs in Dalymount Park. So there's plenty to get into, but first we'll start with Friday night, and that is, of course, Shamrock Rovers 1, Sligo Rovers 2. I am recording this podcast directly after the game as well, so the feelings are still fresh and maybe a little bit more downbeat than we'd like. A disappointing result for the Hoops, as they fell to a late 2-1 defeat to the Sligo Rovers. Look, frustrating isn't the word really to put it. Again, maybe slightly saved by other results. That being that Pats failed to beat Derry City. They drew 0-0. Another thing to note as well of this game was it is a symbol that we are now halfway through the season. Shamrock Rovers sitting top of the table by 2 points, 10 wins, 4 draws, and 4 defeats. After 18 games, and sitting 2 points clear of Pats. But look, we'll get into the game first before we look at what it means maybe elsewhere, and thanks to the other results. Disappointing isn't the word, as I said, to put it. But look, it's one of these that they slip away, and Rovers weren't on it really. Simply put, they weren't at the races. Stephen Bradley said it after in his post match interview as well. Look, there's no hiding away from it. Shamrock Rovers weren't on their game and lacked the levels seen. It's different, back to back defeats for the first time since the run in of the 2025 season. So it's the first time for back to back defeats since then. And even then, I suppose that has an asterisk beside it. Rovers were winning the league. It was more just, as we said at the time, maybe it was a matter of when, not if, they'd win the title. So I think that's why the foot came off the gas, and also battling with Europe and pursuing the double, which obviously Rovers would become successful in. But yeah, the levels between this defeat and the defeat at Dundalk were completely different. Rovers made 4 changes to the starting lineup, and maybe that was the catalyst for it all, because Rovers never got going. It seemed like it was going to be a night where there could be good football, and I've touched on it before, and I just think when Rovers go from away games to home games, particularly like back-to-back away games, first it was Galway away and then Dundalk away, then to play Sligo Rovers at home. I don't know, there just always seems to be a bit of a difference in performance, or maybe a drop-off in the levels. What I would say is, Sligo, the same result as when Rovers played Sligo last season. Completely different circumstances last season, however, with a alternated lineup, and Rovers were just waiting for the final whistle to go so they could begin title celebrations. Whereas it's a completely different situation Rovers are in now, heading into Monday against Bohs, and now definitely coming in on the negative, on a negative note, I suppose. Look, the opening stages of the game, it's like Rovers did start brightly. Inside the first minute, there was already a chance, and look, a half chance maybe at that. Chance from a corner, and maybe it says the tone that Rovers weren't going to be at the races here and fully settled defensively. And yeah, after the opening spell, Rovers did start controlling possession and territory. But look, I don't know. We seem to run into the same issues here, and we talk about the same thing nearly on a weekly basis with this on this podcast. And look, ultimately, what is it that comes down to? And it comes down to Shamrock Rovers lacking that attacking threat, and it's just time and time again you're seeing it. Look, obviously 12 minutes in, Rovers get the opener. It goes down as a McHale own goal. It was a nice piece of interplay between Aaron Greene and Adam Brennan. And then Greene obviously gets a shot off, and then it takes a strong deflection off McHale, which probably, it probably is an own goal in itself. But like pretty much after that, like half chances here and there, the odd good chance there was. Throughout the remainder of the first half, Dara Patton then gets a chance, hits the crossbar, and ultimately he's cut the defence wide open with that chance, and it should have maybe been a wake up call. It's 25 minutes into the game. Michael Noonan then he gets a chance. He was slipped in by Aaron Greene, but then ultimately leads to a comfortable save for Sam Sargent. But yeah, like there's issues here. Struggling to get out then from their own half. Rovers, where I think Michael Noonan was dispossessed a couple of times. It led to a chance from James McManus. He ultimately hits it wide, but again, it just kind of showed that Rovers struggling to get out. There were times where it was really nice setup play and got out in tight positions. So there was definitely that, but there was then like that. That was on 36 minutes. It was on two occasions for the crowd started kind of maybe getting on Rovers back a little bit, just voicing their frustrations and rightly or wrongly, Um, yeah, look, it leads to a Sligo Rovers chance then, and yeah, just it looked maybe like this wasn't going to be one of those days that Rovers were going to get everything, but ultimately no one expected Sligo Rovers to be scoring a winner in the 98th minute, I think it was in the end. Jake Mulroney was replaced for Danny Grant on 39 minutes, which was an unusual sub. I didn't hear Stephen Bradley talk about it in the post match interview that he done. But yeah, I'm sure we'll find out in due course of what that was. Maybe it was a knock. He seems to be holding something of his face, but he did walk off the pitch. He wasn't helped off the pitch, and he wasn't limping. Um, but yeah, he's replaced by Danny Grant on 39 minutes. And then ultimately Adam Brennan, he done some nice run. Like there was maybe some critics out lately for Adam Brennan performances weren't up to scratch, but there was a nice piece there where he starts to run that Jenna and Sua, and it ends up in like look, it was a more of a limp attempt, and that was just before the interval. But again, that was just showing signs that Rovers have the capability, like we all know, they had the capability to be putting Sligo Rovers in the back foot and pressing for that second goal, and what would have changed the outcome of the game really, and definitely changed the feeling around Tallaght as the game wore on. Half time, I felt that yes, the football was nice from Rovers, and they were the better team, but again, just time and time again, lacked that attacking threat. And yeah, it was just ultimately, Rovers weren't at it, or well, they were in that first half. I thought there just wasn't enough clear cut chances, and I don't think there was. Matt Healy picked up a knock just before the interval. He ended up seeing out the half, but then he was replaced at half time by John O'Sullivan. It looked Steve Radley did touch on that in the interview, and did say they'll assess him going into obviously the big week that is back to back Dublin derbies of one obviously being Monday and the other being Friday. Pats at home. But second half, then Rovers nearly come out of blocks. They tend to do, which they do tend to do. Michael Noonan holds it up. He feeds Jack Burren, who then ends up feeding Adam Brennan. He knocks it back across the box, but there's no one there. But it just showed that Rovers were able to get in behind Sligo Rovers, which they done on occasion. But this was definitely one of the more attacking moments, or one of the more threatening moments, that the Hoops had. Aaron Greene got beaten of his man. He sets up Michael Noonan, who ends up attempting to hit his attempt, goes astray and goes wide. That was about 5 minutes into the second half. Adam Brennan, don't know, it was a bit of a controversial moment. Adam Brennan, I don't know if he got away with a penalty show. Seemed from where it was in the south stand that the ball struck his arm. I'm not sure if I haven't been able to see a replay yet, despite looking, but maybe, yeah, I don't know. Maybe it did hit his arm. I don't know. There wasn't. The only thing I would say was Sligo Rovers supporters were right beside the incident and didn't seem like they made too much noise in protest, but the players definitely did, and that was nearly on the hour mark that happened. But yeah, look, ultimately the ref waves play on and doesn't give a spot kick. But John O'Sullivan drives the ball then on 63 minutes and leads to an Adam Brennan attempt, and he forced the keeper into a save and ultimately get a corner. And that's when the Tallaght crowd, South Stand, starts to create a little bit more noise than what they normally were, anyways. And yeah, just as I said, pushing on for that second, because football punishes you, and if you don't get that second, you end up having results like tonight where Rovers lose 2-1. But yeah, other than that, then literally 2 minutes after that, where Rovers maybe were feeling more positive going into it, and feeling like the levels were increasing. The ball comes into the box at the back post. Seemed like it was Adam Brennan who was lost his marker, sleeping at the back post, and Asua levelled it on 66 minutes. Yeah, look, that was a disappointing goal to concede. When you look back, I think Adam Brennan would probably be, yeah, he'd be blaming himself maybe for that chance. Look, it happens. It's professional football. At the end of the day, you have to be alive 20 or 90 minutes of the game, and yeah, these moments can easily happen. But it might, hopefully, it doesn't knock his confidence as he goes to join the Ireland camp. Look, for the Qatar and Canada friendlies. But yeah, it's one of them. It happens. But yeah, like Rovers just punished for that, and it's just showing the levels of the league. If you go asleep for a minute, you will be punished, and that's exactly what Sligo did. They were there. I don't think Sligo, see, Bradley admitted to it as well. I think Sligo deserved 3 points, whatever about a point. Don't think they deserve three, but look, you have to be there and you have to punish when you get your moments, and that's exactly what they did. It goes 1-1, it changed the complexion of the game. And then not even 10 minutes after, Graham Burke and Victor Ozenvuna link up well. They have two of them have chances blocked, but it definitely that got the crowd going again, particularly on the back of conceding an equaliser. And then nice piece of interplay with Jack Byrne and Danny Grant ends up in a weak attempt from Jack Byrne. But the note I took from that was it was another shot on goal which Rovers needed, and that was on the 75th minute, which you thought, look, there's plenty of time here to make it 2-1, and kind of forget this ever happened nearly of the negative aspects of the performance. But yeah, then it looks like Rovers are going on the front foot. John McGovern sets up. John O'Sullivan gets a good attempt on the goal. That's 77 minutes in. But yeah, look, it's not enough really. These chances again, apart from what the one I'm about to touch on, all the chances seem to really come from outside the box, where they lack that kind of being able to maybe overly trust Sligo. Once they can kind of keep them at arm's length, that's one thing. Obviously, look, Rovers have plenty of players in that squad that can do damage from outside the box, but I think maybe Sligo were probably happy just to be able to keep them there and not let them in the box too much. But of course, John McGovern was slipped in stoppage time, ends up taking it around the keeper, doesn't get a shot away, and ends up, I think, leading to a goal kick, because he kind of nearly gets ahead of himself. That was the 92nd minute where you thought that was the chance to win the game. 2 minutes after that, Sobowali fills the ball into the box. McGovern swings a boot at it, but ultimately doesn't connect with it. And yeah, I think at that moment, that was 94th minute. Thought maybe. Then, like, there's still 3 minutes left. You're thinking this is still possible for a last minute winner, but it was possible for a last minute winner, but it wasn't for Shamrock Rovers. It was for Sligo. It was a throw in in their own half, way in near the goal. And then, like, ultimately, you're thinking if you take this quickly, the ref might allow one more chance just to go up and try get something. They lose possession, and then look, lo and behold, Rovers concede in the 98th minute. I think it's going down as the 97th. Carl McHugh, the sub, scores the goal and wins it for Sligo, and then you hear the away end. Yeah, it's just so frustrating, these performances. Plenty obviously leaving then as soon as the goal goes in. Obviously, frustrated with what they've just seen. But the ref allowed one more chance, one more ball to go in the box for Rovers. Ultimately, it doesn't lead to anything. But yeah, I think, look, my takeaway from the game, a lack of goal threat is just killing Rovers at times. First half, yeah, just, I don't know. The first half was, there was a goal and you go 1-0 up and you're 1-0 at the break, but it's not good enough really. In second half, chances are there, but not enough. My takeaway is that Rovers, time and time again, just not putting teams away here. They're not. Aaron Greene is a great player and well able to link up the plays exactly what you want, and he gives you exactly what you need, essentially. But there's still a Michael Noonan there as well. Obviously, look, he's gaining more and more experience as time wears on, but there's no one in there that's just that out and out number 9 that's up there, hangs about and scores goals every time you give him a chance. like Aaron Greene's the closest to it, and obviously look, yet again here I am mentioning Rory Gaffney, but um, he's the closest to it as well. But again, I just touch always just the first thing that comes into my mind is just the age. You know, you can't be relying on 35, 36 year olds and 17-year-olds on the other side of it. Graham Burke comes on, and while he does make a positive impact, it's obviously he doesn't have enough to be able to. He didn't have enough on the night to be able to get and put the ball in the back of the net. And look, this is not even individual blames here, because it's far from it. Rovers have a very talented squad and a lot of players in there well capable of putting the ball in the net, but sometimes it doesn't click. And tonight it didn't click. But what I would say is just there's something missing there for Rovers, I think, at the minute. And this defeat was one. Is a sign showing maybe exactly what's missing. And as I said, look, it is an out and out striker that isn't particularly older or particularly younger, and someone who's in their 20s, for example, that's well able to, that knows where the posts are, senses a threat before it's even begun. And yeah, look, for Rovers, I think it's just it's missing that talisman really that's gonna get you them goals, maybe 15, 20 goals a season. Um, they don't. I don't look. I don't. There's no one there, I don't think, that has that really in their locker at the moment. As I said, it's more of a rounded squad where goals can nearly come from anywhere. As I said, your Graham Burks or Victor Ozenvunas, goals can come from them lads. It's possible. Jack Byrne, Danny Grant. Then they come from set pieces. Pico Lopez, and of course, like your Michael Noonan, your Aaron Greene, Adam Brennan. Everyone's well capable of scoring a goal in that squad. But the issue is, you just need someone who's consistently doing it. Rovers are obviously consistently getting goals, but they're coming from different areas of the pitch. Rovers need someone who's clinical in that final third, that can just produce a weekly basis. And when I say a weekly basis, look, you're never going to get a striker, I don't think, that scores every week. But you want a striker that scores most weeks. And particularly when you're going in, you're looking at, the upcoming schedule. It's going to get a lot busier soon. International European footballs is going to be, before you know it, it's going to be coming around. The draw isn't even that far away. I think it's 18th of June, I thought I read the other day. So that's just a sign that, as I said, it's not coming, it's not too far away. It's the start of July, the qualifiers start, and Rovers are guaranteed, look, even if you're going to think about it maybe negatively, Rovers are guaranteed a minimum 2 European rounds, and they'd only have 2. Is the only scenario where that happens is if they lose the Champions League first qualifying round, they'll drop into the Conference League second round, and they lose that, and then they're done. But that's still 4 European games. And look, we've seen the way Rovers have performed lately, or as in recent years in Europe. I think we'll all be expecting Rovers to have a lot more than 4 European games. But of course, look, that's just the bare minimum they're going to have, and that'll impact the workload Rovers having anyways. And I don't know. I think maybe the summer are Rovers going to look to get a talisman. It's hard to call at this stage, but definitely something that's worth looking at. And yeah, look, there's more strikers out there, and if Rovers are going to be preparing maybe to deal with a loss of Michael Noonan in the summer, he definitely needs to be replacing him. And anyways, then that's the first thing you need to be doing, and replacing him with maybe a slightly older striker who has a good record behind him. Wouldn't do the squad any harm. But yeah, look, overall that's a disappointing result for Rovers. They weren't at it, and yeah, plenty of frustration leaving Tallaght Stadium from supporters. Yeah, it's one of them. Look, it's led to maybe a downbeat tone. It tends to happen when Rovers don't take 3 points. Look, it's part of football that they didn't. And these games do happen. But I think I'm looking at the game tonight, and I'm thinking that shouldn't really be happening against Sligo. 4 changes shouldn't really be enough to disrupt the rhythm the way it did, and it did just that. Look, the positive now. You had Pico Lopez coming out at half time, his name being sung as he prepares to head to join his international teammates as Cape Verde prepare for the FIFA World Cup this summer. I think they face Serbia in a friendly just before as well. But yeah, everyone wishes him the best of luck there, and I'm sure they'll do very well. Well, hopefully they do very well. And as he said in one of his interviews with I think Fifth Pro, which is FIFA, one of FIFA's channels or podcasting, that they don't want to be there just to make up the numbers and participate. They want to put their stamp on it. But look, I'll leave it at that for Sligo Rovers talk. Yeah, look, it didn't work out the way Rovers wanted it to. But that's football, and that's the way the cookie crumbles. And what I will say, it's not a positive sign as they head into a Dublin derby on Monday with Bohs in Dalymount Park, a place where Rovers don't have a good record. But I'll get onto that not too far away future. But before we do that, what has dominated debates around this fixture is, of course, the international call-ups. Of course, for on the Rovers front, Ed McGinty and Adam Brennan have been called into that squad. But that's not even where the debate falls, because look, Stephen Bradley, as we announced or well put up on the page earlier in the week, Stephen Bradley said he's preparing to give Alex Noonan his league debut against Bohs. Was Alex Noonan 17 years of age? He's played in Leinster Senior Cup. He's made Leinster Senior Cup performances, and he's played obviously at the World Cup, the under 17s World Cup, most recently in December just gone. But yeah, look, it's scary for Alex. I'm sure. Like I think every Rovers fan knows exactly what he's capable of, and even Stephen Bradley spoke so highly of him. But this is big to be giving him his league debut, to play Bohs the last game at Dalymount. Between the two, it's a big call. But what it does allude to is this international break and the call-ups. The debate online is, of course, look, you have Bohs who have now held back Dawson Devoy, so he won't be missing either of Bohs fixtures in the coming week, that being Rovers at home, and I think they have Sligo on Friday. He won't miss either of them because they're holding him back, so he will be just available for the friendly away to Canada, which is on the 6th of June, which means that's between the next game on Friday and then League of Ireland returns 2 weeks from then. I'm not too sure the feeling around that. Maybe I think, look, Stephen Bradley has spoken publicly on the international front time and time again. I don't think he can go then and give out, but he does have a case for 100%. I don't think any Rovers fan would disagree with that. He does have a case. That being, look, Shamrock Rovers, even not even Shamrock Rovers, but this international window that's coming up. Like, why are Ireland playing a friendly against Qatar the day before, or in the middle of 2 games of the League of Ireland? This wouldn't be asked of any other club player. I don't know. It's just strange. When like, could that Qatar friendly not be the following week, and have Qatar and Canada play 2 games in the same week, the way they do with every other international break window? It's normally like they'll normally play at the weekend, play midweek. Like it could be a Thursday, Tuesday schedule. Could that not be possible? Or Tuesday, Saturday, could it not be then? Just, I don't know. Scheduling of this friendly is poor. To put it in the middle of a League of Ireland window where there's 2 games going on isn't it's not, it doesn't look good. Look, of course, I also understand that from the Ireland Qatar perspective, I'm sure Ireland can't just be going. I didn't know, despite not knowing the ins and outs of how these things work, unless you're involved in it. Could Ireland be going to Qatar and saying, can we just play the game the following week? I don't know, but the point being that, look, this is an international break. There's 2 friendlies. Ireland they're not preparing for a World Cup, so essentially these friendlies they don't mean anything. They're just kind of exercises. Like, Ireland are going to be the warm up act for Canada as they head to the World Cup. They're playing Qatar. I think the Qatar friendly looks like it's just a box ticking exercise because they're going to be going, For Ireland season ticket holders, you have to play a minimum. They have to play a minimum 5 home games a year, and they've already played one against North Macedonia, play one against Qatar, and then they'll have their 3 home Nations League fixtures. Now, of course, one of them being not shouldn't be being played against Israel, but so that's like for most fans that's 4. But look, this with this game against Qatar, it's just like what's the purpose of having it in the middle of a League of Ireland window and then calling League of Ireland players in it, and then Heimer's kind of turned to the clubs to say you make your own decision on if you want them to be joining for the friendly in the Aviva versus or have them join just for the friendly against Canada. Like this shouldn't have to. This shouldn't be a case. This shouldn't be an issue. This is like these friendlies should be next week. There's no reason for this to be in the middle of a window where League of Ireland players have to make a decision of whether they play for their club or the country. Why? Like it makes zero sense here. Um, Heimer did say he would have liked the friendly or the not friendly the fixture between Bohs and Rovers be postponed. Because of course he has Dawson Devoy in the squad and he has Ed McGinty and Adam Brennan, so that's 3 players that essentially would have one game at least, anyways, where they're not missing it. Stephen Bradley, as he said, as we reported on, that he fully suspected that the game was to go ahead. He's heard nothing otherwise. Um, it looked like they couldn't agree on or couldn't find really time for when would the game be played. Then if they were to postpone it from Monday, particularly obviously look with Rovers going to be playing an international, or I keep saying it, calling international, in European football, and so are Bohs. So like essentially, there isn't space there, but again, this is falling on League of Ireland. Like this is my opinion. This is just ridiculous. Really, this shouldn't be the case. Rovers Bohs shouldn't have to. You have Conor Brand who's in there as well of Cork City. Not even being discussed that obviously they're going to be playing as well, and he'll likely be missing that. And then what it does is it puts the League of Ireland clubs in a predicament. You either hold the players back, and as Bohs are, then that means they miss the Qatar friendly and they're available just for Canada. Now, whilst on paper that's not a big deal, they're both friendlies, but I would say you're preventing these players from the opportunity of playing for their nation in their home stadium, putting on the green jersey, in the Aviva. Now, of course, I know it's a friendly. Look, friendlies mean nothing, and particularly this friendly against Qatar, as I just said, they mean nothing. They're just exercises, really. Um, However, um, there's still an opportunity there. Ed McGinty is going to if Ed McGinty and Adam Brennan, which is likely, they're going to be joining up for the Qatar friendly. They're joining because they want to play. Obviously, look, they'd love to be playing both of them, I'm sure, and they might just do that. However, why it shouldn't be a decision, and it is a decision now that's being made. You either do this or you do that. You play for your club, you play for your country. One's two very competitive fixtures for on the Rovers front. Bohs away on Monday and Pats at home on Friday, so they're missing both of them if they're going to be linking up for that Qatar friendly. But they shouldn't be made a decision. I'm sure they'll have. It's likely they'll have friends and maybe friends and family in the crowd at the Aviva on Thursday should they be there. Hoping that they see them putting on an Ireland shirt. And the decision then you make is, are you going to prevent them from that? Because obviously the other friendly then is they're playing against Canada. Where look, of course, friends and family won't be able to just easily make it to that game. But what one do you do then? As I said, it's not a big game, but at the end of the day, this is a decision that's being left. It's a lot easier for friends and family of Adam Brennan, Ed McGinty, and Dawson Devoy and Conor Brand. It's a lot easier for them to make it down to the Viva Stadium and Lansdowne Road than it is to make it to Montreal in Canada. So this is the decision that has fallen on the League of Ireland now, and does it allude to a bigger point of it's just disrespectful, really? I don't know. However, what I will say is the other side of that coin is, can Stephen Bradley or would he turn back and say I'm not letting Ed McGinty or Adam Brennan join until or he's not letting them join for the guitar friendly. He's only letting them join for Canada. But then what does that do? That means that Stephen Bradley, who's been calling for League of Ireland players, he's constantly calling, of course, for League of Ireland players to be in that setup. And when they do, he's holding them back for one game. But either way, as I said earlier, everyone would back Bradley in that really, because they'd all see the point of, well, yeah, you're calling them up, so that's great. That's what everyone wants. We all want that. I want that. I want to see Ireland. I want to see League of Ireland players. Not, of course, like preferably Rovers, but you want to just see League of Ireland players in that setup. However, at what cost? Then missing two Dublin derbies. That doesn't make it right either. A lazy argument just turn back and, oh well, they're in it though, aren't they? It's not good enough. And that's what I think. I think that's the debate that Stephen Bradley keeps kind of alluding to in any kind of interview he does, is that a broader debate needs to be had, and he keeps saying, but now is not the time. It's probably just that. But yeah, that's my rant over with. It's not really good enough. But look, we'll move it on. Shamrock Rovers are away to Bohs, as we keep mentioning. On Monday. Look, coming out of the wrong time. The attention turns quickly, going from Friday to Monday. Never an ideal schedule, as we always mention on this podcast, and yet again here we are. But of course, the two sides are involved in Europe, and that's why their games are brought forward, the same as Derry City and Shelbourne, that are taking place on the same night. Look, it's a massive game. This is massive. It can't be understated. And the fact that it's on a Monday takes the novelty off it slightly, I think, to be quite honest. However, it doesn't, when it comes to kick off, once the ref blows the whistle on Monday night to signal the start of the game, you're going to forget all about that. And the only thing that will matter is Rovers getting 3 points. Look, Rovers don't have a good track record here at Dalymount. But they need to put down a marker. They haven't won in the league, and they're in Dalymount since April 2023. 2-0 win. Neil Frugia and Rory Gaffney getting the goals. I don't know the current form that Rovers are in. Back-to-back defeats. First time this year. I don't know. I'm not confident going into it anymore. Unfortunately. When I say not confident, I don't see Rovers coming away with 3 points here at the moment. The way I'm feeling, it's helped that I'm doing this from directly after Rovers lose 2-1 to Sligo, and being there and being at Oriel Park to see them lose 1-0 to Dundalk. But then you look at the two games before that, 4-1 win over Drogheda and a 3-1 win over Galway, and thinking, how long will this run continue? Because of the performance levels of those two games, you thought Rovers could easily go on a run here and not lose game for a long time. But ultimately, then they go and lose back-to-back games, and it's football. It's the League of Ireland. It's unpredictable, and yeah, look, Rovers need a big performance here. Backs are going to be against the wall. Also coming up against the Bohs side, who are quite literally hitting form now. Yeah, unbeaten in 5 games, 3 win. They're unbeaten in 5, and they're on a 3-game winning run, and wins included Dundalk, Drogheda, and Galway, and they've scored 9 goals in that time. So they're bagging goals here. They're not just winning the game; they're scoring plenty of goals. Obviously, a 4-2 win over Galway tonight. Or when you're listening to this, it will have been yesterday. But yeah, look, Rovers might be without. Well, it looks like they're going to be out, obviously without Ed McGinty, as Bradley said he's going to be preparing for Alex Noonan to make his league debut. Unless I don't see a universe where he makes a late decision to hold them back and only release them for the Canada friendly. Jake Mulroney came off early. I'm not sure if he'll miss that game. Matt Healy needs to be assessed, so he could be missing the game as well. But yeah, this is huge, and it's coming for Bohs. I'm sure they're licking their lips. This is coming at the perfect time for them. For Rovers, it's coming potentially at the worst time so far this season, where the moments they've had. Not to say it's going to be the worst overall. We don't know, but ultimately, from what we've seen so far this year, I think this is coming at the worst time for Rovers. And as I said, obviously the last time we were there, it was a 3-2 defeat but it was 3-0 until stoppage time. Rovers get 2 late goals, and myself and Adam discussed at the time, did the 2 goals only come because Bohs are kind of down 2 and they're holding on to a 3-0 lead, and at that point I think when you're 3-0 up, it's not like you're holding on to a 1-0 then and you're being tight defensive. You're 3-0, you're kind of being you're holding on, but you're not really holding on because you're being a bit more loose, and particularly because on that night, anyone who watched it or anyone like myself and Adam who were there on the night, um, that could have been 4-5 on the night. That game was bruising, and you just don't want that to be the case on Monday. Look, by the time it comes around, I'll be a lot more enthusiastic. I think maybe I need to do another episode on the day on the train up, but no, yeah. Look, presumably on the day I'll be a lot more confident and a lot more excited, of course, as well. But yeah, look, you can't help but feel at the moment after a 2-1 defeat to Sligo Rovers and losing 1-0 to Dundalk the week before. You can't help but think it won't be a positive result. But look, crazy. This is football. It's the League of Ireland. You just don't know what happens, and obviously it's the last game in Dalymount Park between the two, and it's obviously getting the redevelopment after this year, and I was reading that it looks like they might be in the RDS for their home games from next year. But yeah, that's obviously, look, that'll be then. Selection questions. Look, we don't know who's going to be in, who's going to be out at the moment in terms of Mulroney and Healy. As I said, I'm presuming McGinty and Adam Brennan aren't going to be there. It means Alex Noonan's going in the net. It's such a big call. You like can't you can't help but think otherwise. Who comes in for Matt Healy in the case that he is out? It likely will be the man who replaced him tonight, and that was John O'Sullivan. Look, can have no qualms about that. He was positive when he came on and made a positive influence, or had a positive influence on the game. And despite Rovers losing, he got, I think, 2 or 3 shots off, and one did work the keeper. So look, I think I think he'll come in, maybe not seamlessly, but or as much as you maybe want Matt Healy to be in there instead. But look, if John is the man that replaces him, I don't think there'll be too many concerns on that front. Victor Rosenville will probably expected to return to that starting lineup. And the Stevens and Dan Cleary, I think you can more or less maybe put your hat on or hang your hat on them returning to the fold as well. Obviously, they didn't start against Sligo tonight, but yeah, I don't see Adam Matthews starting again. I don't see Dylan Watts either starting, and then I think either way with Jake Mulroney, I think even if he ends up being fit for the game, I don't think he starts on the night. But then again, you're without Adam Brennan. So this is where the questions arise: who do you put in then instead? If you're without Adam Brennan, and if you're anticipating no Mulroney, obviously Sabawale will occupy. But then you have Danny Grant coming in, and obviously returning from injury, so you might see him then come back to that starting 11. And of course, Danny Grant against his former side as well. I'm sure he'll relish the opportunity to give it back again. To Bohs, he's not fond of shying away when goals are scored, even if it's not from himself against Bohs. So yeah, I'm sure he might relish that opportunity to get one over on Bohs. It's an 8 p.m. kickoff on the Monday as well. Virgin Media 2 is the channel showing it. And yeah, it's just such a big game. Bohs are creeping up the table as well. They are 3 points off Rovers, so should Rovers be beaten on Monday? Hopefully not, of course, but if they are, Bohs will draw level points, and Pats will sit down with a game in hand as well. That'll loom over them for a while. Rovers or Pats won't play the game in hand until a little bit later on in the year. But yeah, look, we're halfway through the season, halfway through the league. 18 games in, Rovers sitting at the top, sitting at the perch, 2 points clear of Pats, 3 points clear of Bohs. There's a little bit of daylight between Bohs and Dundalk now at the moment of 5 points. That being extended after Bohs obviously beating Galway 4-2 and Dundalk being held to a 1-1 draw with Drogheda at the other half of the table. Sligo getting 3 points against Rovers. Disappointing, and now they're only 1 point away from safety. They're currently still sitting in that relegation playoff place, but yeah, that'll make for interesting viewing to see how continues to unfold. Derry and Shelbourne face each other on Monday as well. Derry sitting 3 points off Shelbourne, but Shelbourne have a game in hand over Derry, and they also have a game in hand over Dundalk. And if they were to win that, they would overtake Dundalk. Arguably, like, I know it's not a game in hand. It's their game in hand is Galway because that got rescheduled till September. You could look at it as the game in hand will be Derry on Monday, and which, as I said, a win would put them above Dundalk and put them into fourth place. But yeah, look, downbeat isn't the word really for how I'm feeling at the moment. Recording this directly after Rovers being beaten by Sligo Rovers and a late winner as well. It's always even more sort of rubs salt into the wounds. And yeah, but look, bring on the Bohs. I am excited for that game, and as I'm talking about and thinking about it now, I'm getting more excited. So look, hopefully I'll be talking to you next after a positive result against Bohs and getting one over on them. It's currently 1-1 in terms of how the teams have performed against each other. Obviously, Rovers beating Bohs in Tallaght, Bohs beating Rovers in Dalymount. But that's episode 32 of the Milltown Way. Thanks as always for listening. Be sure to follow us across all socials and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And hopefully, as I said, next week we're talking about much better results. We'll talk to you after Bohs. Thanks for listening.